Her billionaire husband left her for her sister, but he didn't know her secret. The boardroom went completely silent. Julian stood at the head of the conference table, his face pale, his hands gripping the edge like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "Naomi, you have no standing here." His voice cracked just slightly. "Security, remove her immediately." I didn't move. I stood in the doorway of that executive conference room with a black leather folder in my hands and 15 years of invisible work behind me. "Sit down, Julian." My voice cut through the room like a blade through silk. "I'm not here as your ex-wife. I'm here as the 51% majority shareholder of Vance Industries." "That's impossible." He laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Desperate. You don't own anything." I made sure of that. I walked to the table, placed the folder down, slid copies of documents to each of the 12 board members sitting there in their expensive suits with their shocked faces. Every patent powering this company has my name on the original filing. Every algorithm running your platform was registered under my shell company. Every strategic decision you've made for 15 years came from my office. The one with no name on the door. Gerald Steinberg, the venture capitalist who'd backed us since our Series A round, picked up the documents. His eyes scanned them. Then he looked at Julian. Then at me. "Is this true?" Every single word. I kept my voice steady. The Architect Group, Ashford Family Trust, Meridian Holdings, all entities I created to protect the company I built while my husband took credit for it. Julian's hands were shaking now. "Naomi, what are you doing?" "I'm taking back what's mine." I turned to the board. "Julian Vance has been operating as CEO of a company he does not control. I am formally exercising my shareholder rights to remove him from his position. Effective immediately. You can't do this." I pulled out another document from the folder, placed it directly in front of him. "Your resignation letter. I took the liberty of drafting it for you." I looked at him then. Really looked at him. "You called me a relic, Julian, but relics are the things that survive long after empires fall. That moment, that exact moment when a man who thought he owned everything realized he'd been working for me all along. That's where this story reaches its peak. But to understand how I got there, you need to know where it all started. Let me take you back to when I still believed partnership meant equality. 15 years ago, I was Dr. Naomi Ashford, 26 years old, PhD in computer science from MIT, postdoctoral work in algorithmic economics from Stanford. I'd published papers that fundamentally changed how the tech industry understood machine learning governance. I'd been recruited by Google, by Amazon, by Facebook before I turned 27, but I was also a black woman in a field that barely saw us. I was a brilliant mind trapped in a body the industry didn't know how to value. They wanted my brain. They wanted my research. They wanted my frameworks. But they didn't want to put my face on magazine covers or my name on product launches. So when I met Julian Vance at a tech conference in San Francisco, I saw an opportunity. Not for love. Not yet. For visibility. He was pitching to a room full of venture capitalists. The conference room at the Marriott Marquis was packed. Standing room only. Everyone wanted to hear about this new founder who was promising ethical AI for corporate governance. But 5 minutes into his presentation, I could see the investors getting restless. His slides were a mess. Bar charts that didn't support his thesis. Datasets that contradicted his conclusions. A business model with gaps so wide you could drive a server farm through them. By minute 7, 3 investors had walked out. By minute 10, the remaining ones were checking their phones. Julian finished his pitch to polite applause that sounded like sympathy. The kind of clapping you do at a middle school talent show when someone's kid forgets the words to their song. I waited until the room cleared. Then I approached him at the front, where he was gathering his materials, his jaw tight, his movements sharp with frustration. "Your idea isn't terrible." He looked up at me, startled, like he hadn't noticed anyone staying behind. "Excuse me?" "Your idea. The core concept of using AI to improve corporate governance and reduce executive corruption. It's not terrible." I crossed my arms. "Your execution is..." He stared at me for 3 full seconds. I watched his face cycle through confusion, irritation, and then something else. Curiosity. "And you are?" "Dr. Naomi Ashford." I held out my hand. "I just finished my postdoc at Stanford. Algorithmic economics. I've been working on governance frameworks for machine learning systems." He shook my hand. His grip was firm, confident. The grip of a man who'd been told his whole life that he belonged in rooms like this. "So you think you can do better than what I just presented?" "I don't think. I know." I pulled out my phone, opened a notes app where I'd been sketching during his pitch. Your market entry strategy is backward. You're trying to sell to enterprises before you've proven the model works at scale. You need to start with mid-sized companies. Prove ROI. Build case studies. Then move upstream. He leaned closer to look at my screen. You figured that out during my presentation? Your datasets told me everything I needed to know. You're solving the right problem with the wrong approach. He was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. It was the kind of smile that I'd later learn meant he'd recognize something useful. Then fix it. What? Help me fix it. He closed his laptop. Spend a week with me. Rebuild the pitch. Restructure the model. If it works, we split whatever funding we raise. 50-50. I should have said no. Should have built my own company. Put my own name on the door. Been the face of my own empire. But I was 26. And tired of being brilliant in rooms where no one saw me. So, I said yes. We spent 3 weeks in a co-working space in Palo Alto. Not 1 week. 3. Because everything he'd built needed to be torn down to the foundation and reconstructed. I rewrote his entire platform architecture, built the governance algorithms from scratch, designed the market entry strategy, created financial projections that actually made sense, structured the go-to-market plan, identified our first 10 potential clients. Julian watched, asked questions, learned just enough to pitch it convincingly. He was smart. I'll give him that. Smart enough to know what he didn't know. Smart enough to recognize genius when he saw it. Just not smart enough to give it credit. 3 weeks later, we walked into a conference room at Sequoia Capital. This time, I sat in the back. Julian stood at the front and delivered my vision in his voice. He was good, confident, charismatic. He knew how to work a room, how to make investors feel like they were getting in on the ground floor of something revolutionary. When he finished, the partners asked questions. Technical questions about the algorithms. Strategic questions about market positioning. Julian fielded the easy ones. When they got too technical, he'd glance back at me. Dr. Ashford is our technical lead. She can speak to the architecture. I'd stand, walk to the front, explain the framework in language they could understand, watch their eyes light up with understanding. Then I'd sit back down. And Julian would close. We walked out of that meeting with term sheets for $42 million in Series A funding. On the street outside, Julian grabbed my shoulders, grinning like we'd just won the lottery. We did it. No. I looked at him directly. I did it. You presented it. His grin faltered. Just for a second. You're right. I'm sorry. We did it. You built it. I sold it. That's the partnership. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that partnership meant we were equals, that my work behind the scenes was just as valuable as his face in front of cameras. So when he proposed 6 months later, I said yes. We were in that same co-working space in Palo Alto. It was late, nearly midnight. We'd been working on our Series B pitch. The space was empty except for us. Naomi. I didn't look up from my laptop. Marry me. I looked up then. He wasn't holding a ring, wasn't down on one knee. He was sitting across from me at that cheap IKEA table with his laptop closed and his hands folded. What? I need you. Not just for the company. For everything. You make me better, smarter. You see things I miss. I don't want to build this without you. That's a business proposal, not a marriage proposal. It's both. He reached across the table, took my hand. I love you. I love your mind. I love how you don't take my bullshit. I love that you're the smartest person I've ever met, and you don't need anyone to tell you that. I should have asked more questions, should have defined terms, should have made sure we had the same understanding of partnership. But I was 27, and no one had ever looked at me the way he was looking at me right then. So I said yes. The wedding was beautiful in that quiet, elegant way that old money does everything. The Vance family estate in the Hamptons. 200 guests. Ceremony on the lawn overlooking the ocean. Julian's mother, Catherine Vance, wore Chanel and pearls and a smile that never reached her eyes. She cornered me during the reception. We were alone near the bar while Julian talked to investors. You're not what I expected for Julian. I kept my voice pleasant. What did you expect? Someone from our world. Someone who understands how these things work. What things? Marriage in families like ours. It's strategic. A merger of equals. You're very accomplished, Naomi. Very intelligent. But you don't bring connections. You don't bring legacy. I bring the entire company your son's name is on. Her smile went sharp. Yes, and that's precisely the problem. When a woman is more competent than her husband, it creates imbalance. Men like Julian need to feel essential, needed. If you're not careful, he'll find someone who makes him feel that way. I should have listened, should have heard the warning under the condescension. But I was young, and I thought love and competence could coexist. For 2 years, they did. Julian and I built Vance Industries into something real, something that mattered. We brought our platform to market, signed our first 20 enterprise clients, proved the model worked at scale, raised our Series B, $65 million. Every technical decision came from me. Every product launch, every platform update, every algorithm improvement. I worked from an office on the 15th floor. No name on the door, no title on my business card, just a space where I could think and build and create. Julian worked from the executive suite on the 20th floor. His name on the door, CEO on his card, his face on magazine covers. At home, he'd ask my opinion, defer to my expertise, call me his secret weapon. In public, he'd talk about the vision we were building. The we would slowly become I when journalists asked follow-up questions. I told myself, it didn't matter, that I was secure enough not to need public recognition, that the work was what mattered. That partnership meant sometimes one person shines while the other builds. I was lying to myself, but I didn't realize it until it was too late. The erosion started so slowly I didn't notice it happening. Year 3 of our marriage, Julian hired a brand consultant, someone to help position Vance Industries for our next phase of growth, make us feel accessible to younger consumers, humanize our corporate image. The consultant's name was Brianna Ashford, my baby sister. She was 10 years younger than me, 27 to my 37. Beautiful in that effortless social media ready way that I'd never been. High cheekbones, perfect skin, the kind of smile that made people want to be near her. Brianna had dropped out of medical school after 2 years. Couldn't handle the pressure, she'd said. Too much studying, too much memorization. She wanted something creative. Something that let her personality shine. So she'd bounce between influencer gigs and wellness brands, posting sponsored content for skincare companies, doing brand partnerships with boutique fitness studios, making just enough money to live in a tiny apartment in Brooklyn and call herself an entrepreneur. I'd watched her struggle, felt guilty that I had so much while she had so little. When Julian mentioned needing a brand consultant, I suggested her. Bree would be perfect for this. She understands social media. She knows how to make brands feel authentic. Julian looked skeptical. She doesn't have corporate experience. I'll train her. Please. She needs this opportunity. He agreed because he loved me, because making me happy mattered to him then. So Brianna joined Vance Industries as our director of brand strategy. $200,000 a year. Full benefits. An office on the 19th floor. I was so proud of myself for helping her. So completely unaware that I just handed my husband to my sister. The first year, Brianna was perfect. She did exactly what we'd hired her to do. Refreshed our social media presence, made our content feel younger, more dynamic, started a corporate blog featuring employee stories, launched a podcast interviewing tech leaders about ethics and innovation. She was good at it, really good. Julian started consulting her on decisions that had nothing to do with branding. We were at dinner, our apartment in Tribeca. I'd made pasta. Julian was on his second glass of wine. I'm thinking about expanding into the European market. He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. That's ambitious. What's driving the timing? Brianna thinks our brand is strong enough to go international. She showed me engagement metrics from our European followers. There's real demand. I put down my fork. Brianna is advising on international expansion strategy. She has good instincts. She has good Instagram analytics. International expansion requires regulatory analysis, market research, partnership development. That's not her expertise. He shrugged. I'm just listening to her perspective. You used to listen to my perspective. I still do. He reached for my hand. You're technical. She's strategic in a different way. We need both. I should have said something then. Should have drawn a line. Should have reminded him who actually built the strategy he was crediting to my sister. But I didn't want to seem jealous. Didn't want to be the insecure wife who couldn't handle her husband working with other women. So I stayed silent. That silence cost me everything. Year 2 of Brianna's employment, she started traveling with Julian. Tech conferences I used to attend. Investor meetings I used to join. Board presentations I used to prepare. Julian would mention them casually the night before. I'm flying to Austin tomorrow for that conference. quick overnight trip. I thought we were going together. I'd already put it on my calendar. Brianna's handling the brand presence this year. She set up some podcast interviews. I figured you'd want to stay here and focus on the product roadmap. It made sense. Logical. Reasonable. Except it happened again. And again. And again. Austin. Boston. Chicago. Los Angeles. London. Berlin. Every conference. Every major event. Julian and Brianna. Their photos on social media. Professional. Appropriate. Just two colleagues building a brand. Except Julian wasn't smiling at her like a colleague. My best friend Maya called me out on it. We were having coffee at a cafe in Soho. She'd been my roommate at MIT, the one person who'd known me before Julian, before Vance Industries, before I became invisible. Have you seen Brianna's Instagram lately? She showed me her phone. It was a photo from a tech conference in San Francisco. Julian and Brianna on a panel together. He was mid-laugh, looking at her, the way he used to look at me. The caption read, "Building the future with the best team in tech." They're colleagues. I handed back her phone. "It's a work event, Naomi." Maya's voice went soft. "That's not how colleagues look at each other. You're reading into things." "Am I?" "When was the last time Julian looked at you like that?" I didn't have an answer, because I couldn't remember. Year 3 of Brianna at Vance Industries, I started noticing other things. Julian coming home later, working weekends at the office when he used to work from home, taking phone calls in other rooms. When I'd ask about his day, his answers got shorter. Fine. Busy. Same old stuff. When I'd try to talk about work, about the product roadmap, about strategic decisions, he'd say he was too tired. "Can we not do work talk tonight? I need to decompress." But he wasn't too tired to text someone. I'd see him smiling at his phone, typing quickly, then putting it away when he noticed me watching. "Who are you texting?" "Just work stuff." At 11 at night, Brianna had a question about tomorrow's presentation. It was always Brianna. Brianna's working late. Brianna needs feedback. Brianna has an idea I want to discuss. My sister's name in my husband's mouth more than my own. I told myself I was being paranoid, that work relationships can be intense without being inappropriate, that I was projecting my own insecurities. But then I saw the gifts. I came home early one day. Julian wasn't expecting me. I walked into our bedroom and saw a jewelry box on the dresser. Cartier. I opened it. Diamond earrings. Emerald cut. Probably $15,000. My heart started pounding. Julian had never bought me jewelry like this. We'd been married 5 years and my engagement ring was the only significant piece I owned. I heard him come in behind me. "Those aren't for you." His voice made me turn around. "I can see that." I kept my voice steady. "Who are they for?" "Brianna. It's her birthday next week. I wanted to get her something nice. She's been working really hard. $15,000 earrings for an employee's birthday? She's not just an employee. She's your sister. And she's been instrumental in our rebrand. I've been instrumental in building the entire company, and you've never spent $15,000 on my birthday. That's different." "How?" He didn't have an answer for that. I closed the jewelry box, placed it back on the dresser. "You're having an affair with my sister." I said it flatly, without emotion, testing the words. "Don't be ridiculous." His response was too quick, too defensive. "We work together. That's all." "Then why are you buying her diamonds?" "Because I appreciate her contributions, and I wanted to do something thoughtful." "You're turning this into something it's not." I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe my husband wasn't sleeping with my baby sister, that the two people I loved most in the world weren't betraying me together. So I swallowed the accusation, apologized for overreacting, went back to work like nothing was wrong. But I started watching, really watching, the way Julian said Brianna's name, with warmth, with interest, with the kind of attention he used to give me, the way he'd defend her ideas in meetings, even when they contradicted mine, the way he'd take her side in strategy discussions, even when she was objectively wrong. One afternoon, we were in a board meeting, discussing whether to acquire a smaller competitor or build our own competing product. I'd done the analysis, built the models. The numbers were clear. Building our own product would take 18 months and cost $12 million. Acquiring the competitor would take 3 months and cost $8 million. We should acquire. I presented the data. It's faster, cheaper, and gets us to market before our window closes. Julian nodded, then looked at Brianna. "What do you think, Bri?" She smiled, that careful, practiced smile, From a brand perspective, I think building our own product gives us more authenticity. Customers want to know we innovate, that we don't just buy our way to solutions. That's a brand consideration, not a strategic one. I kept my voice level. The market doesn't care about our innovation story if a competitor captures the space while we're building. Brianna's point is valid, though. Julian was already agreeing with her. We've built our reputation on innovation. Acquiring could undermine that narrative. Acquiring is innovation. It's strategic innovation. It's smart business. I think we should explore building. Julian's voice had that finality to it. The tone that meant the decision was made. Brianna, can you draft a brand narrative around our innovation commitment? She nodded. Already on it. The meeting continued, but I'd stopped listening because I'd just watched my husband choose my sister's branding opinion over my strategic analysis. In front of the entire board. After the meeting, Gerald Steinberg pulled me aside. Naomi, what's going on? What do you mean? That was your analysis. You built those models. You're right about the acquisition. Why did Julian override you? I don't know. He looked at me for a long moment. Be careful. Men who stop listening to competent women usually have a reason. And it's rarely a good one. I should have listened to Gerald. Should have started protecting myself right then. But I was still hoping I was wrong. Still hoping my marriage wasn't disintegrating while I watched. That hope died 3 months later. At our 15th wedding anniversary gala, the event was Julian's idea. A celebration of 15 years of marriage and 15 years of Vance Industries. 2 anniversaries in one night. The venue was the penthouse ballroom at the plaza. 300 guests, investors, board members, employees, tech industry leaders, journalists. I'd helped plan it, chosen the menu, approved the guest list, selected the flowers. I wore a champagne-colored gown, Valentino, the most expensive dress I'd ever owned. I'd had my hair done, my makeup professionally applied. I'd wanted to look beautiful, wanted Julian to see me the way he used to. When I arrived, the ballroom was already full, and Julian was standing at the center of the room with Brianna. She was wearing a black gown, form-fitting, designer, diamonds at her throat, the earrings he'd given her catching the light. Her hand was on her stomach. That's when I knew. I walked toward them. The crowd parted. Conversations stopped. People turned to watch. Julian saw me coming. His face didn't change, didn't show guilt or fear or regret. He looked calm. Prepared, like he'd been expecting this. Naomi. He said my name like we were acquaintances, not husband and wife. I'm glad you're here. This is our anniversary party. Where else would I be? I have an announcement to make. He turned to address the room, his voice carrying over the music. Thank you all for coming tonight, for celebrating with us. I thought the us meant me and him. I was wrong. I've been doing a lot of reflecting about legacy, about the future, about what Vance Industries needs to become in the next decade. He put his hand on Brianna's shoulder. Brianna represents everything this company is evolving toward. Innovation, energy, vision. She understands where culture is going, how to connect with the next generation, how to build a brand that matters. I stood there 3 feet away from my husband while he praised my sister in front of 300 people. Naomi, you've been an incredible partner. Past tense, but partnerships have seasons, and ours has ended. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. I've filed for divorce. You'll retain the Connecticut house and receive a settlement reflective of your contributions. But Vance Industries and everything associated with it remains with me. Someone gasped. I don't know who. Brianna touched her stomach again. We're also expecting. Her voice was soft, humble, perfectly calculated. Julian's first child. A new chapter for the Vance legacy. The world tilted. My husband was leaving me for my sister, in front of everyone who mattered in our industry, at our anniversary party, and she was pregnant with his child. I should have screamed, should have thrown something, should have made a scene that would have ended up on page 6 by morning, but I didn't, because somewhere in the shock and the humiliation and the betrayal, something else was happening. Clarity. I looked at Julian, really looked at him, saw him clearly for the first time in 15 years. He wasn't a partner. He was a performer, a man who'd built an empire on my work and convinced himself it was his genius. I looked at Brianna, my baby sister, the woman I'd put through medical school, the woman I'd given a career. She was smiling, barely, but I saw it. She wasn't sorry. She was victorious. I could have destroyed them both right there. Could have told everyone in that room who actually built Vance Industries. Could have exposed every line of code, every algorithm, every strategic decision that came from my office with no name on the door. But I didn't, because rage is loud and obvious, and I'd learned something from 15 years of being invisible. Silent women see everything. So, I smiled. Congratulations. I kept my voice steady. Warm, even. I hope she gives you everything you deserve. Then I turned and walked out of that ballroom with my head high and my spine straight, and my phone already dialing the one person who knew the truth. Victoria Chen, my lawyer. The woman I'd hired 3 years ago when I'd first started suspecting this moment might come. She answered on the first ring. It's time. I said it walking through the plaza lobby in my Valentino gown and my professional makeup with tears I refused to let fall. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Then let's take back what's yours. I got in a cab, gave the driver my Connecticut address, watched Manhattan disappear behind me, and I started planning the end of Julian Vance. The Connecticut house felt different when I walked through the door that night. It was the house Julian had bought me as part of the divorce settlement, like I was a business expense being written off, severance package for a retiring employee. The house was beautiful. 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, wraparound porch overlooking 3 acres of woods. The kind of house I dreamed about growing up in Cleveland, in a 2-bedroom apartment where I shared a room with Brianna until I left for college. I should have felt grateful. Instead, I felt insulted. Because this house was worth maybe $2 million, and the company I'd built was worth $2 billion. I dropped my bag in the foyer, walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of wine, sat at the counter in my Valentino gown and my professional makeup that was starting to smudge. Then, I opened my laptop. The file was labeled Contingency Plan. I'd created it 3 years ago, the first time I'd seen Julian look at Brianna the way he used to look at me. Maya had asked me why I stayed with him if I suspected an affair. I didn't stay because I was weak. I stayed because I was strategic. Because leaving a marriage in anger gets you a settlement. Leaving a marriage with evidence gets you everything. For 3 years, I'd been documenting, building, protecting every corporate filing, every shareholder agreement, every patent registration, every piece of evidence that proved what Julian thought he owned was actually mine. The phone rang. Victoria Chen. I answered. Tell me you have everything ready. Her voice was calm, professional. Victoria was 52, partner at one of the most prestigious corporate law firms in New York. She specialized in cases where powerful men underestimated powerful women. I'd hired her after Julian gave Brianna those diamond earrings. Told her I needed someone who could help me protect assets in case of divorce. She'd smiled. In case of divorce, or in case you need to take back a company that's legally yours. She'd understood immediately. I have everything. Victoria's voice brought me back to the present. The shareholder documents, the patent filings, the corporate structure showing your majority ownership. All of it is ironclad, and he has no idea. Men like Julian never read the documents they sign. They assume if their lawyer approves it, it's in their favor. They don't consider that their wife might be smarter than their lawyer. When can we move? When do you want to move? I thought about it, took a sip of wine, watched the moonlight coming through the kitchen windows. He's planning an IPO, taking the company public, $18 billion valuation. When's the IPO scheduled? 3 months. He'll want to ring the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange, get his photo in the Wall Street Journal, cement his legacy as a self-made billionaire. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed. It was sharp and delighted. You want to take it all back on the day he thinks he's won. I want him to understand what he lost, not when he's drunk and guilty, not in private where he can pretend it didn't happen. I want him to lose everything in front of the entire world. Then we have 3 months to build an airtight case. No. I set down my wine glass. We have 3 months to build an execution plan. The case is already airtight. Now we just need to time the kill shot perfectly. The next morning, I woke up at 5, made coffee, sat on the back porch watching the sun rise over the woods. Then I called the second person who needed to know what was coming. The phone rang 4 times before she answered. This better be good. It's 5 in the morning. Maya, I need you to do something for me. She was immediately alert. Maya had been my best friend for 20 years. She knew my voice, knew when I was serious. What happened? Julian announced his affair with Brianna last night, at our anniversary gala, in front of 300 people. She's pregnant. He's divorcing me. giving me this house and walking away with the company. That bastard. I'm coming over right now. No. I need you to do something else. What? I need you to hire a private investigator. Someone who specializes in corporate espionage. Someone discreet. Naomi, what are you planning? I'm planning to find out if my sister is actually pregnant. And if she is, I want to know who else she's been sleeping with. You think she's lying about the pregnancy? I think Brianna has never been a good enough actress to seduce a billionaire on her own. Someone is coaching her. I want to know who. Maya was quiet for a beat. I know someone. Former FBI. She's expensive. I have $2 million in a house I'm about to sell. Use whatever you need. 3 days later, I met the investigator at a coffee shop in Westport. Her name was Lauren Cross. 45. Short silver hair. Sharp eyes that saw everything. She looked like someone's yoga instructor. She was actually one of the best corporate investigators on the East Coast. She slid a tablet across the table. Your sister is very active on social media. I looked at the screen. It was Brianna's Instagram, the past week of posts. Photos of her supposed pregnancy journey. Bump photos, green juice, prenatal yoga. Those photos are fake. Lauren zoomed in on one image. See the lighting here? And the shadow angle here? These were taken on different days. She's using a prosthetic bump and posting them strategically. Are you sure? I ran reverse image searches on her ultrasound photos. They're stock images, available on prenatal websites. The dates don't even match her supposed timeline. She's not pregnant. No. Lauren pulled up another file, but she's being paid by someone who wants everyone to think she is. Show me. Bank records appeared on the screen. Brianna's personal account. Large deposits. Regular. Coming from an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. How much? $50,000. Every 2 weeks. For the past 18 months. I did the math in my head. That's almost $2 million. Someone is funding her lifestyle. Lauren zoomed in on the transaction details. And it's not Julian. His financial records don't show any transfers to her beyond her salary. Then who? That's what I need time to find out. But whoever it is, they're sophisticated. Offshore accounts. Shell companies. This isn't amateur hour. How long do you need? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. I have contacts at the Treasury Department. If money is moving internationally, I can trace it. You have 2 weeks. The IPO is in 3 months. I need to know who's pulling Brianna's strings before Julian goes public. Lauren smiled. It was the smile of someone who loved a good hunt. I'll find them. She did. 12 days later, Lauren called me at 7 in the morning. I found your puppet master. Who? Marcus Hale. The name hit me like cold water. Marcus Hale was the CEO of Titan Analytics, Julian's biggest competitor. They'd been going head-to-head for 5 years, competing for the same clients, fighting for the same market share. Titan had tried to acquire us twice. Julian had refused both times, said he'd never work for Marcus Hale, that Hale was everything wrong with tech, ruthless, amoral, willing to do anything to win. And now Hale was apparently willing to seduce my husband through my sister. Tell me everything. Lauren sent me files as we talked. I opened them on my laptop, saw bank transfers, email chains, recorded phone conversations. Hale approached Brianna 2 years ago at a tech conference in Austin, told her she was wasted in a branding role, that she had potential Julian wasn't recognizing, that she deserved to be more than Naomi's little sister. He recruited her. Exactly. Offered her money, coaching, a plan. All she had to do was get close to Julian. Close enough to access proprietary information, close enough to influence his decisions, close enough to sabotage the company from the inside. And the fake pregnancy? That was Hale's idea. Lauren pulled up an email. I have the correspondence. Hale told Brianna that Julian is obsessed with legacy, with building something that outlasts him. If she could convince him she was carrying his heir, she could manipulate him into making catastrophic business decisions. What kind of decisions? Pushing the IPO forward before the company is ready. There are vulnerabilities in your platform architecture, security gaps that haven't been patched. Hale knows about them because Brianna fed him the information. If Vance Industries goes public with those vulnerabilities, Titan can exploit them. Tank your stock price. Force a fire sale. Hale acquires you for pennies on the dollar. So this whole thing is corporate espionage. Corporate espionage. Fraud. Conspiracy. Your sister is committing federal crimes, and she's not smart enough to know it. Can you prove all of this? I have bank records, emails, recorded phone calls between Brianna and Hale, text messages where they laugh about how easy Julian is to manipulate. I have everything. I want copies of all of it. And I want you to send it to the FBI. The FBI? If Brianna is stealing trade secrets and selling them to a competitor, that's a federal crime. I want her prosecuted. I want Hale prosecuted. I want everyone who tried to destroy what I built to face consequences. Lauren hesitated. Naomi, if the FBI investigates, this becomes public. Your sister will go to prison. Your family will be dragged through the press. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Brianna. Growing up sharing a room with her, teaching her to read, helping her with homework, paying for her medical school even when she dropped out, giving her a job when she needed one. Then I thought about her standing in that ballroom with her hand on her fake belly, smiling while Julian humiliated me in front of 300 people. Send it to the FBI. My voice was steady. And make sure they understand the timeline. I want them ready to arrest her on the day of the IPO. You want maximum impact. I want justice. And I want it public. 1 week later, Victoria called. The FBI is building a case. They have an agent assigned, someone named Rodriguez. He specializes in white-collar crime and corporate espionage. How long until they're ready to move? They want to wait until they have enough evidence to charge both Brianna and Hale. Rodriguez says they're close, maybe 6 weeks. The IPO is in 8 weeks. I know. Victoria's voice was careful. If the FBI arrests Brianna before the IPO, Julian will postpone. You won't get your moment. Then we need to coordinate. FBI arrests her at the IPO. Same day I take back the company. Everything happens at once. That's a lot of moving pieces. I've been moving pieces for 15 years. This is just the first time anyone will see it. The next 6 weeks were the longest of my life. I sold the Connecticut house, moved into a small apartment in Brooklyn. Something temporary. Something that felt like mine. I worked with Victoria's legal team. Reviewed every document, every shareholder agreement, every corporate filing. Made sure there were no gaps, no loopholes, no way for Julian to fight back. We identified the board members who would support me. Gerald Steinberg was the first call. I met him at his office in Midtown. Corner suite, view of Central Park. He'd made his fortune backing the right founders at the right time. He looked at the documents I'd brought, took his time, didn't speak for 10 minutes. Then he looked up. You've owned 51% of this company since the Series B. Since before the Series B, I created the holding companies during our Series A. I protected the architecture before Julian even understood what he had. Why didn't you ever tell him? Because I wanted to see if he'd value me without needing to. I wanted to know if our partnership was real. And now you know it wasn't. Now I know he'd rather have my sister than my genius. So I'm taking back what's mine. Gerald smiled. It was wolfish. What do you need from me? I need you to vote with me when I remove Julian as CEO. And I need you to bring 3 other board members with you. Consider it done. He stood, offered his hand. I've been waiting for this day since I saw him override your acquisition analysis in that board meeting. Men who don't listen to brilliant women deserve to lose everything. We shook on it. 2 weeks before the IPO, Julian called me. I almost didn't answer. We hadn't spoken since the gala. All communication had gone through lawyers. But I was curious. Naomi. His voice was careful. How are you? I'm fine, Julian. What do you need? I wanted to make sure you're okay. With everything. I know this hasn't been easy. You publicly humiliated me at our anniversary party, and then took the company I built. No, it hasn't been easy. I'm sorry. For what it's worth. I didn't want it to happen that way. But you wanted it to happen. I wanted to be with someone who sees me as more than a business partner. Brianna makes me feel alive. Like I matter for more than just the company. I built you the company. I built you the reputation. I built you the entire life you're living. And you think you matter for more than that? He was quiet. I hope the IPO goes well. I kept my voice pleasant. I hope you get everything you've worked for. Thank you. He sounded surprised. That's generous. I'm not being generous, Julian. I'm being honest. I hung up. Because he was about to get exactly what he'd worked for. Which was nothing. The night before the IPO, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my Brooklyn apartment staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that led here. 15 years of invisible work. 15 years of building something extraordinary while someone else took credit. 15 years of being told my value was in what I created, not who I was. Tomorrow, that changed. Tomorrow, the world would see me. Maya called at midnight. You should be sleeping. I can't. What if something goes wrong? Nothing is going to go wrong. Victoria has coordinated with the FBI. Gerald has the board votes. Lauren has given you every piece of evidence you need. You've planned this perfectly. What if I'm making a mistake? What if taking the company back makes me just as bad as him? Naomi, Maya's voice went firm. Julian took credit for your work for 15 years. He left you for your sister. He tried to erase you from the company you built with your own hands. Taking back what's yours isn't revenge. It's justice. I'm scared. Good. Fear means you understand what's at stake. But don't let it stop you. You've earned this moment. Now go take it. I hung up, took a deep breath. Finally fell asleep around 3. When I woke up at 6, I felt calm. Today was the day. I dressed carefully. Navy blue suit. Simple. Professional. No expensive jewelry. No designer labels. Just competence. I pulled my hair back. Did my makeup minimally. Looked at myself in the mirror. This was the woman who built Vance Industries. Not Julian's wife. Not Brianna's sister. Just me. Dr. Naomi Ashford. The architect of everything Julian thought was his. I picked up the black leather folder. Everything I needed was inside. Then I drove to Manhattan. The board meeting was scheduled for 8 in the morning. 1 hour before the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. 1 hour before Julian's photo would be taken for the Wall Street Journal. 1 hour before I took it all back. I arrived at Vance Tower at 7:45. The building I'd designed the blueprint for during our Series B. My name nowhere on the architectural credits. Security didn't stop me. I still had my access badge. Still technically had standing as a consultant. I took the elevator to the 20th floor. Executive suite. Walked past Julian's assistant who looked surprised to see me. Mrs. Vance, the board meeting is about to start. Are you expected? No. But I'm attending anyway. She picked up the phone. Probably to warn Julian. I didn't care. I walked to the conference room. Opened the door. 12 board members were already seated. Julian at the head of the table. Brianna beside him. Inappropriate. But no one was challenging it. Julian looked up. His face went from confusion to irritation. Naomi, you have no standing here. Security, remove her immediately. I didn't move. Just stood in the doorway with my black leather folder. Sit down, Julian. My voice cut through the room. I'm not here as your ex-wife. I'm here as the 51% majority shareholder of Vance Industries. The room went completely silent. That's impossible. Julian stood. You don't own anything. I made sure of that. I walked to the table. Placed the folder down. Slid documents to each board member. Every patent powering this company has my name on the original filing. Every algorithm running your platform was registered under my shell company during our Series B. Every strategic decision you've made for 15 years came from my office. The one with no name on the door. Gerald Steinberg picked up his documents. Started reading. His expression didn't change, but I saw him nod slightly. Is this true? One of the other board members, a woman named Patricia Chen. She looked at the shareholder agreements. You own the architect group? I created it 15 years ago, along with Ashford Family Trust and Meridian Holdings. Collectively, they hold 51% of this company. I kept my voice level. Julian has been operating as CEO of a company he does not control. This is insane. Julian's voice was rising. Naomi, what are you doing? I'm taking back what's mine. I turned to the board. I am formally exercising my shareholder rights to remove Julian Vance from his position as CEO, effective immediately. You can't do this. I already have. I pulled another document from the folder, placed it in front of him. Your resignation letter. I took the liberty of drafting it for you. His hands were shaking. He picked up the paper. Read it. His face went pale. Brianna finally spoke. Julian, do something. Her voice was sharp. Call your lawyer. Fight this. I turned to her. Oh, Brianna. I'd almost forgotten about you. I pulled out a second folder. This one thicker. Slid it across the table. While we're on the subject of things people don't know, your girlfriend isn't pregnant. She's been wearing a prosthetic bump and posting stock ultrasound images on Instagram. The bank records show she's been paid almost $2 million over the past 18 months by Marcus Hale of Titan Analytics. What? Julian grabbed the folder. Started reading. Corporate espionage. I kept going. Brianna has been feeding proprietary information to your biggest competitor for 2 years. Trade secrets. product plans, security vulnerabilities, everything Hale needed to destroy you once you went public. You're lying. Brianna's face was white. I have recorded phone calls, bank transfers, email correspondence, all of it. I looked at her directly. The FBI is waiting for you in the lobby. They have a warrant for your arrest. Security appeared at the door. But they weren't building security. They were federal agents. Brianna Miles. One of them stepped forward. Badge visible. FBI. You're under arrest for corporate espionage, wire fraud, and theft of trade secrets. Brianna stood, looked at Julian, then at me. You did this? Her voice was venomous. You vindictive bitch. No. I stayed calm. You did this when you decided to betray me with my husband, when you decided to steal from the company I built, when you faked a pregnancy to manipulate a man you were already destroying. I just documented it. They put handcuffs on her, led her out of the conference room. She was crying, loud, dramatic, the performance of her life. The door closed behind her. I turned back to the board. Gentlemen, and Patricia, the IPO will proceed as planned, but under new leadership, mine. Vance Industries will be renamed Ashford Vance Industries, and the world will finally know who actually built this company. Gerald Steinberg spoke first, all in favor of removing Julian Vance as CEO and installing Dr. Naomi Ashford as his replacement. 11 hands went up. Only one board member abstained, a man who'd been Julian's fraternity brother. Everyone else voted for me. Julian stood frozen at the head of the table, watching his empire dissolve in real time. I walked to where he was standing, leaned close enough that only he could hear me. You called me a relic, Julian, but relics are the things that survive long after empires fall. I straightened, addressed the room in my normal voice. Someone call security. Mr. Vance is no longer authorized to be in this building. They escorted him out. He didn't fight, didn't argue, just walked, like a man who finally understood. He'd lost everything. I sat down in the CEO chair at the head of the table. It fit perfectly. My friends, before we see how this story ends, I need you to stop for just a moment and hear me clearly. What you just witnessed wasn't just a woman reclaiming her company. You witnessed the power of strategic silence. You witnessed what happens when brilliance refuses to beg for recognition and instead architects its own vindication. Let me teach you something about human psychology. There's a principle called the halo effect. It's the reason why people like Julian Vance rise fast and fall hard. Society sees a handsome face, a confident voice, a man who looks like success, and they project competence onto him, even when it isn't there, even when the actual competence is sitting in an office with no name on the door. But here's what society missed. Naomi was the competence. She was the foundation, the blueprint, the engine. Julian was just the paint job. And when you confuse the surface with the substance, you lose everything. For my sisters watching this, especially my black queens, my immigrant daughters, my women who've been told to shrink so others can shine, I need you to hear this clearly. Your brilliance is not your burden. It is your birthright. Naomi didn't scream. She didn't beg Julian to see her. She didn't humiliate herself trying to prove her worth to people who'd already decided she was invisible. She moved in silence. She documented everything. She protected herself legally, financially, emotionally, and when the time was right, she didn't destroy Julian out of bitterness. She simply revealed the truth, and the truth destroyed him all on its own. That's moral elevation, family. That's what it looks like to win without becoming what hurt you. Now let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, I lift up every person watching this who has ever been called a relic. Every woman who's been dismissed after she built the table everyone else is eating at. Every silent genius who's been erased by people who couldn't code a single line, close a single deal, or dream a single vision without her. Lord, I pray you give them the discernment to see the Julians and the Briannas before they get close enough to wound. I pray you give them the courage to document, to protect, to build safety nets even when love says trust blindly. I pray you give them the patience to wait for the right moment, not out of fear, but out of strategy. And Father, I pray that when their moment comes, you give them the grace to take back what's theirs without losing who they are. May their bank accounts overflow. May their minds stay sharp. May their enemies be forced to watch their success from the sidewalk. They are queens by birth and architects by design. In Jesus' name, amen. If that prayer stirred something in your spirit, type amen in the comments right now. Let's build a community of people who refuse to be erased. 6 months after I took back my company, my life looked nothing like it had before. I was standing in my new office, the CEO suite at Ashford Vance Industries, Corner office. 20th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River. My name was on the door. The IPO had been a massive success. $18 billion. Just as projected. Except now the world knew the truth. Forbes ran a cover story. The woman who built Vance. How Dr. Naomi Ashford hid in plain sight for 15 years. TechCrunch called me the most dangerous strategist in Silicon Valley. Fast Company did a feature titled Why We Almost Lost the Most Brilliant Mind in Tech Because She Was a Black Woman. I didn't do interviews. Didn't need to. The work spoke for itself. I'd expanded the company, acquired 3 of our competitors, launched an AI ethics initiative that set industry standards, established a fellowship program for women and minorities in STEM, fully funded, no strings attached, no quotas, just opportunity. I wasn't just a CEO. I was building something that mattered. My assistant buzzed me. Dr. Ashford, you have a visitor. No appointment. He says it's personal. Who is it? Julian Vance. I paused. We hadn't spoken since the boardroom. All the legal details had been handled by lawyers. The divorce finalized. The settlement executed. He'd gotten nothing except a small severance to avoid a lawsuit. And his silence, send him in. I was curious what he wanted. What he possibly thought he could say. Julian walked through my door looking nothing like the man who dismissed me at that gala. His suit was off the rack. His confidence was gone. He looked smaller somehow. Like losing everything had physically diminished him. Naomi. His voice cracked slightly. Thank you for seeing me. I didn't stand. Didn't offer him a seat. Just waited. I came to say I'm sorry. For everything. For not seeing you. For taking credit for your work. For Brianna. For all of it. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Julian? That I forgive you? That we can be friends? That I understand? I don't know. I guess I hoped you might. I leaned back in my chair, the CEO chair that should have always been mine. I accept your apology, not because I need it, but because I imagine you do. He nodded. Looked down at his hands. I was a fool. Yes, you were. Brianna's in prison. Did you know that? I know. 4 years. Federal minimum security. She took a plea deal. Testified against Marcus Hale in exchange for a reduced sentence. Hale lost everything. Titan Analytics collapsed under federal investigation. The fraud charges. The conspiracy. He's facing 20 years. I know that too. Did you visit her? Brianna? No. I haven't spoken to my sister since the day she was arrested. I sent a message through her lawyer. Told her when she gets out, if she wants to rebuild her life, I'll help her. But only after she's served her time. Only after she's faced real consequences. That's more generous than she deserves. Maybe. But I'm not interested in revenge, Julian. I'm interested in building something that outlasts all of this. He looked around my office, at the awards on the walls, the photos of the fellowship students. The framed Forbes cover. You did it. Everything you said you wanted to do when we first met. You're changing the world. I was always changing the world. You just couldn't see it because you were standing in front of me. He flinched. But he didn't argue. What are you doing now? I asked. Where are you working? Small consulting firm in Austin. Helping startups with go-to-market strategy. It's humbling. But honest, good. Honest is better than impressive. He stood to leave. Paused at the door. For what it's worth, I always knew you were smarter than me. I just didn't want to admit how much smarter. I know. He smiled sadly. Of course you do. After he left, I sat alone in my office for a long time. I didn't feel triumphant, didn't feel vindicated, just quiet, peaceful. I'd spent 15 years being invisible, being the brilliant woman behind a mediocre man, letting him shine while I built. And now I was visible, undeniable, exactly who I was always meant to be, not because I destroyed Julian, but because I finally stopped hiding. That evening, I had dinner with Maya. We met at a small restaurant in Brooklyn, the kind of place we used to go to when we were grad students, before Vance Industries, before Julian, before everything. So, how does it feel? Maya asked. Being the most powerful woman in tech. Exhausting. I smiled. Exhilarating. Terrifying. All of it. You earned it. I know. But knowing that doesn't make the responsibility easier. What's next? I'm expanding the fellowship program, doubling the number of students we support. I want to find every brilliant black girl, every immigrant daughter, every woman who's been told she's too much or not enough. And I want to give them what I never had. What's that? Visibility. From the beginning. So they never have to hide their genius to make mediocre men comfortable. Maya raised her glass. To visibility. I clinked my glass against hers. To never being invisible again. 3 months later, I received an invitation. The Global Tech Leadership Summit wanted me to deliver the keynote address. 2,000 attendees. Tech leaders from around the world. The theme was building ethical empires. I almost said no. I didn't like public speaking. Didn't enjoy being the center of attention. But then I thought about all the women watching. The ones who were still invisible. Still building in the shadows. Still letting someone else take credit because they thought that's what partnership required. So, I said yes. The night of the summit, I stood backstage in a simple black dress. No expensive jewelry. No designer labels. Just me. The moderator introduced me. Dr. Naomi Ashford, founder and CEO of Ashford Vance Industries, architect of one of the most significant corporate transformations in tech history. I walked onto the stage. The applause was loud, sustained. I looked out at 2,000 people, all of them watching me, seeing me. Finally, I began. 15 years ago, I met a man with a terrible idea and a great smile. He needed someone to turn his vision into reality. I needed someone to give my work a face the industry would trust. So we made a deal. I'd build. He'd present. We'd share everything equally, except that's not what happened. For 15 years, I built an empire while he took credit for it. I wrote every line of code, filed every patent, designed every strategy, and he stood in front of cameras and said, I let him. Not because I was weak, not because I didn't know my worth, but because I thought invisibility was the price of partnership. I was wrong. The audience was completely silent. 1 year ago, my husband left me for my sister, announced it at our anniversary party in front of everyone who mattered in our industry, told me I was a relic, that partnerships have seasons, that his season with me was over. He took the company, took my sister, took everything except the Connecticut house and a settlement that was insulting compared to what I'd built. And I smiled, congratulated him, walked away, because I knew something he didn't. I paused, let it land. You can't take what someone doesn't own. And Julian Vance never owned Vance Industries. I did. I'd owned 51% since our Series A. I just let him think he was in charge. When he tried to take everything, I took it back. Publicly, legally, completely. The applause started. I raised my hand to stop it. I'm not telling you this story so you'll think I'm impressive. I'm telling you this story so you'll stop making the choices I made. Stop hiding your brilliance to make mediocre people comfortable. Stop letting someone else take credit because you're afraid of being too much. Stop believing that invisibility is the price you pay for love or partnership or belonging. It's not. You were not created to build empires for other people to claim. You were created to build empires with your name on them. My voice got stronger. If you're the smartest person in the room and no one knows it, that's not humility. That's tragedy. So be visible. Be undeniable. Put your name on your work. Take the credit you've earned. Stand in front of the cameras instead of behind them. And if someone tells you you're too much, that you're threatening, that you need to shrink, smile at them the way I smiled at my husband. Because you're about to take back everything they thought was theirs. The applause was deafening. I stood on that stage with 2,000 people on their feet, finally seeing me, finally understanding that the quiet woman in the background was the architect of everything. And I felt free, not because I'd destroyed Julian, not because I'd won, but because I'd finally stopped apologizing for being exactly who I was. Family, if this story stirred something in you, if Naomi's silence and strategy and victory made you believe that you too can rise from betrayal into brilliance, then I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that subscribe button. Join the Kings and Billionaires romance family. Every single week, we bring you stories about people who don't just survive. They architect their comebacks. They refuse to stay broken. They win with grace, intelligence, and moral clarity. Like this video, if you believe that silence is the most dangerous weapon a brilliant person can wield, share this with someone who's been underestimated, someone who's been erased, someone who's building in secret and waiting for their moment. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had your brilliance stolen by someone who couldn't do what you do? Have you ever been called a relic by someone who owed you everything? Let's talk about it. Let's build a community where we protect, empower, and celebrate each other. Because here's the truth, family. You are not defined by who betrayed you. You are defined by what you chose to become after. Naomi wasn't destroyed by Julian's dismissal. She was revealed by it. And so will you be. Your emotions are not weaknesses. They're information, data about what you need, what you value, what you won't tolerate. When someone dismisses your feelings, they're revealing their limitations, their inability to handle depth, their fear of authentic connection. Mental health struggles don't make you less than. They make you human. And seeking help is courage, not failure. For everyone who's been told they're too emotional, too intense, too much, you're not too much. You're exactly right for people who can handle depth. The ones who can't, they're showing you their ceiling, not your flaw. Now let me tell you what happened to Naomi in the end. She didn't just rebuild, she revolutionized. Ashford Vance Industries became the gold standard for ethical AI. Her fellowship program graduated 200 women in its first year. 50 of them started their own companies. She never remarried, didn't need to. Built a life so full of purpose and impact that romance became optional, not essential. She reconciled with her parents. They'd been devastated by Brianna's choices. Naomi helped them understand that one daughter's betrayal didn't negate the other daughter's love. When Brianna got out of prison 4 years later, Naomi kept her promise, helped her sister find work, paid for therapy, set boundaries but offered grace. Because the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming so fully yourself that the people who dismissed you realized they had access to something extraordinary and were too limited to cherish it. Let them live with that knowledge. You live with joy. I'm Dennis, and I'll see you next week with another story about people who refuse to be erased. Remember, you are not too much. You are not a relic. You are the architect of your own empire.